Well, hello, this is Ashley speaking, and we are actually going to be working on your skills defined. And this is the document we will be working off of for just this video. And we're going to talk through some skills, what you are good at, pulling out what you're good at, and kind of just work through a few different action items here so that you can take some notes and hopefully apply that to building better bullet points, which is our next module. All right, so we've already talked about finding value. I'm going to sort of just, what's it called? Zoom in here for a minute. You should be able to find value in almost everything you do. A lot of the times when we're, going through our experiences, we're looking to avoid problems or solve problems. Those are really what we're looking to do. Even the smallest of problems. I'm going to say this again in the next module, but I'll say it here as well. One of the biggest pieces of, one of the biggest pieces of feedback I get from candidates who are looking to build their skill sets is just, well, I only did X or I only did Y, which is, not always true. So, for example, well, I worked at, the restaurant, but I only mopped floors. I, I worked at the, company, but I only washed the windows. And I get that a lot. And it's like, well, but that's not true, right? Your experience and has value, and the value that you can pull out of that translates to skills. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So skills are the ability to do something well. If you did watch the intro video, I talked about how strengths are, for me, the way that I sort of define strengths and the way that you look at strengths is really more like, what are we comfortable with? And when we're comfortable with something, we usually can practice it and do it well. And so that's your skill, right? It's what are you comfortable with? And then there's also those types of things that we're not comfortable with, and those are also skills, right? So we can translate them to skills. You can practice something you're uncomfortable with. You can get really good at something you're uncomfortable with. So so really what we're looking to do is pairing your skills and your value, understanding your value so that you can find your skills. And then what really you have is this awesome formula for building bullet points. So when you think about your value and you think about what what you can have to offer and what are you good at, that really is starting to shape up into your personal brand. And that is what employers are looking for on your resume. All right, so as we're looking to match your value and skills to a position description of an employer you are looking for, you should always be finding the pieces of the position description that match your value and your skills. So that's what we're trying to do today, is sort of come to the conclusion on what are those skills, so that you can start to talk about them, especially on your resume. But even beyond your resume, you can talk about your experience in these stories, in interviews, or when you're networking and talking to different connections that you have that will potentially become jobs. All right, so when we went back to our example, think for a moment on your behavior in the world. We talked about you were home cooking a meal and suddenly a vase falls off the table and breaks into a million pieces. What do you do? We talked about how there are a lot of different scenarios in terms of how somebody would react. One scenario we don't have on here is that somebody, put the vase in a space that wouldn't have it knocked down and fall on the floor, right? That's proactively solving that problem. But in this scenario, our vase was sitting in a space that it could have been knocked down onto the floor and crashed and fell into a million pieces. So we talked about our three different, and actually four different reactions, but the three concrete reactions of, you can respond immediately, great initiative, that's a great value point. Walk up to the vase, evaluate the situation. How could I clean this up quickly and efficiently, or effectively and efficiently, so no one gets hurt? So just this is thinking about what to do. This is the critical thinking or the analysis piece. So that's a different sort of value add that you might have had. Maybe you ignored, or you are a person who would ignore this right now. There is no immediate danger. You'll get it when you are finished with your task. So that's really just commitment to that task that you were working on, wanting to follow through on that task. So you can see pulling out those values no matter what situation you have here. Or maybe something different, right? Maybe you reacted in a different way to solve the problem, and that's great too. All of them are great. We did talk about briefly how part of this is you could have responded negatively, or maybe there was a negative action. So in this scenario, someone comes home, steps on the vase glass shard, and gets hurt, right? And the question is, when you're talking about this experience, or you're talking about the story, is what did you learn from that, right? And your skill set that you're building is the piece that you learned. And so we can talk about that too. All right, so let's find the skills that match these value points. So we're actually, I know I've got these 3, and we can call this 4, something different ideas here, but we're actually only going to be looking at, whoops, I'm going to actually here, respond immediately. We're just going to look at this first one to pull out what that skill is. So when I come down here, we're going to find the skill that matches the value point. So let's just say you responded immediately, okay? So the value point is you reacted to solve the problem quickly, right? Taking initiative, however you want to look at that. I do have a list of action verbs that translate this skill, but the first thing I want to do is actually just narrow down that word, right? So what is it that you could provide? And we already talked about values, and that is, you provided this ability to take initiative. So what you have to offer an employer, let's say you're talking about this situation, is you took initiative. All right, so the skill is that you took that initiative. And so what we want to do is look at a list of action verbs that can describe that skill. So we're starting to blend pinpointing our skills with writing our bullet points, because what we want to do is describe what happened in the situation, and we'll get into that in the next module. But right now, we just want to find that skill. So again, your value point is what can you offer, and the offering is you reacted to solve that problem quickly. But the skill, the thing you're really good at that comes out of that value point, is you were able to take initiative. So when you look up here, we're looking at you reacted to solve this problem, great initiative, awesome job. That's the skill, right, that you're describing. So when you look at walking up to the vase and evaluate the situation, oh, look, I've got a couple other examples here. So did you walk up to the vase and evaluate the situation? So the value point is slowing down to think about the solution before acting, sort of just thinking, analyzing, wondering about it. All good. Look at this. We do have a list of action verbs. What is the skill that translates best here? And so we talked about thinking critically, or thought critically, or evaluating the situation. So some of those action verbs that are describing this skill, what you're good at, the thing that you're good at in this situation is slowing down and thinking, analyzing the situation. And so thought critically, evaluated the situation, analysis, those are all words that describe the skill that we're looking at here. Maybe you ignored it for now. Glad we got a couple here. Did you ignore the situation for now? Which sounds like a negative thing, right? Oh, I didn't. But that's okay. You thought about that and you said, it's not time for me to clean this up. There's no immediate danger. It's okay. So what is the value point here? And that is, you showed commitment to the task you were in. You wanted to accomplish that task first. So there are plenty of words that can describe that, but follow through would be something. Loyalty to the task could be another skill that you would pull out. And those are just, again, words that are helping to describe what you're good at here. So those are really the ways that you can pull out those skill sets to help you understand what it is that you are looking to accomplish here. Okay, so again, I'm gonna just scroll up. I know I'm kind of going up and down, but I want to make sure that we understand here. I want to make sure that I'm mentioning here that this experience happened, and we're using this experience, this situation, this story, right? This you were home cooking meal, vase falls off the table, breaks into pieces. That, when I talk about choose your own adventure, it really is, there really are so many different scenarios here, and there are different experiences that everyone can experience. I'm giving an example, and I'm giving a few examples of how to look at those, but please remember that you have to really pick apart your experiences, right? To figure out what it is that you did and you have to offer the employer. And then ultimately, what did you do well in that situation, or what did you learn so that you can pull out a skill set? Okay, I'm going to scroll back down here. Couple other things. Now that we're determining what you are skilled at, are these transferable or non-transferable skills? So I want you to take a look real. You don't have to do this now. You can either pause the video, or maybe you've taken a look already at this graphic we have in the module called transferable versus non-transferable skill sheet, and we're going to work through this on the video, which is right now, to decide what these are. So the big difference between transferable and non-transferable skills is that transferable skills are skills that you learn, and you can basically transfer those skills across situations and across organizations. Non-transferable skills are skills that you learn, but might not be as easily transferred across organizations or situations. Those transferable skills are, those non transferable skills might be things that are more technical in nature. Sometimes they're, things that you can learn in one space but might not look the same. So I'm going to give you an example. There's a system. Well, actually, I'm gonna use Microsoft Office. It's a very simple example. So let's say you've had training on Microsoft Office, or you've used it a lot and you feel like you have this really great skill. Now, at first sight, it would seem that Microsoft Office can be used across organizations, and that is true. So you would think it could be sitting in the transferable skill space, and it could be in certain situations. But in this situation, I would like to give you an example that is non-transferable. So in this situation, in my employer that I learned this Microsoft Office skill. So let's say I learned how to use Microsoft Word at an employer. They might have a certain way that they taught me. When I move over to another organization, while my knowledge on Microsoft Word will move over, and that could be an advantage in learning how to use it at that new organization might use it differently, and you might and probably will have to learn again how they use that system, Microsoft Word, or in that platform. For example, and this is a real life example that happened to me. I learned how to use Microsoft Word in one organization, in the first organization I worked for. And then when I moved over to the second organization, turns out they used Watermark on their documents. And I had never learned how to do that, but I still had training in Microsoft Word. So it's quote unquote non-transferable, because these are skills that you have to learn how to apply them at different organizations. All right. Transferable skills, though, are things that you don't really need to learn how to apply. These are things like, I'll just take leadership as a big one. That's something that I see employers look for quite often, because in this, new economy, so to speak, it's really important that, at least I'm learning, that employers are really excited about people who can lead from where they're at, even if they're not leaders in the organization, say by title, but leading from where they're at. That is something I can learn in one organization, take it to another organization, and apply my own style to it, and likely be successful in that space too. No one needs to necessarily teach me about it. I can learn about it in the space I'm in and apply what I know, and decide through the experiences that I'm having, how to use that skill. So let me give you another example. I worked at one organization, and I had a team of people, and I used that skill to help drive action. And then when I moved to another organization, I did not have a team of people, but I was still able to use that skill to pull teams together and drive action. So at the end of the day, that's a transferable skill. I was able to, move it from one side to the other, and I was able to apply my own style with it, and still see the same results. So really great stuff. So I know that's that can be a tricky one. I have seen that's a tricky one, but I have a tip sheet there that you can kind of look at when you're talking about it. It's just really good to know what your skill is. It's not as though you have to go to an employer and say, I have this transferable skill or I have this non-transferable skill. Just understanding it in the background can help you speak about your own experiences better. So that's why I mention it, and want to keep it on a thing. So let's talk about this. So taking initiative, is this a skill you can transfer or not transfer? And the answer is, in this situation at least, not transferable. This is a transferable skill. So learning how to take initiative when a vase falls to the floor and cracks into a million pieces can apply to learning, or actually can apply to building a database, and taking that initiative to ask the right questions in both places, and kind of like act when you see a problem. Let's say if you're building a database, or you're a lead on a project, or maybe you're a helper on a project or on a team, whatever that looks like. So taking initiative, transferable. Thinking critically, transferable. So this is something that, learning how to do in one space, you can go over to another space, or look at another problem and at a totally different organization with a different set of rules and a different set of cultures, and you can still think critically, and you can still be successful in that thought process. And then follow through, this other here, follow through is the same. So transferable here, same. So this experience was definitely life experience that you can move over to a new organization, or to a different organization, and be able to be successful when you're thinking about these options, or when you're thinking about these skills. Okay, so that is it for now on skills. There are some really great, I'll put this into the module. So there's, see, this is a PDF, but you're also going to see an action verb list, and that action verb list will help you understand the types of action verbs you can use when we pull down here. Sorry, I'm going up and down, I know, but the action verb list here is, look at the list of action verbs. So when I think about taking initiative, what words can I use to describe that skill? And so we want to have a variety of words. I pulled an action list out that you'll be able to see, and you can look at the different skills and find words that describe that. But the best use of this is just Google, right? Google, or getting into a search engine. And, if my skill is taking initiative, I would just Google the word initiative and look for synonyms that are similar, right? And that are actionable. To help describe that. And I would pick the right one, and we'll talk about that in our next module, but I would pick the right one. And so that action verb list is there, and I'll likely put it in the next module too, because it's so important. So I hope you enjoyed this quick synopsis on skills, and understanding your skills, and have a great rest of your